Nick, hello.
Hello.
We're live by
The countdown didn't do anything on my side.
No, it's technology of me. Let's just hope the volume's working, because that would be embarrassing, really, if we talked for an hour and nobody could hear us. So,
thumbs up in the chat if you can hear us.
yeah, thumbs up in the chat. Let me just put the YouTube on so we're all good and I can see that. Yep, I can see that coming through. Nice. So amazing to see you on this experience of being live, because I've seen you many times before, face to face, really, haven't I, over the years?
Yep, many times at the London Gaming Market, Play Expo, all that kind of stuff.
So just before, because we're very familiar, I guess, with each other, so let me just first of all introduce you to Nick Westwood. And Nick runs Retrobreak, which was known as other things. We'll get into that, but Nick is the curator, creator, and mind behind the creative mind and content creator behind Retrobreak. So Nick, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the games. A bit about yourself, maybe, as far as you want to go, perhaps.
Sure. Let's see. I'll try and keep it gaming related, because I could derail this pretty easily.
Yeah,
so, gaming related. I started the channel back in 2007 now, which is just insane to think that it was that long ago. I'm sure we can get into that, into the history of my channel and stuff. Been collecting games like as long as I can remember, and then just enjoy talking about them basically and sharing it all online. Went to university and college to study game design. Didn't really do anything off the back of that, but maybe one day. But yeah, just enjoy being around on the internet, talking about games, making friends with people like Chris, like games you loved. It's all fun, great community. Happy to be a part of it.
So you did game design at university. What did that involve? Running games, but any particular like plus points, bad points of trying that out, and not you haven't got your role now. It's not your job as we speak, is it?
No, I don't work in games at all. I'm a software developer, so kind of related to IT, but not related to games at all. But it pays for the games. That's why I'm doing that. It pays well. In terms of the game design course, it wasn't really what I was expecting. I started doing programming at first, but I didn't really get to grips with programming that well at the time, so I dropped out of that and moved on to a design course instead. So it was kind of interesting. It was like looking at like a finished game, like I took Sonic Adventure 2, for example, and then you would have to write a document thinking from the minds of the designers. How did they design this game? So how did they structure the levels? How did they come up with the controls and stuff? And then you would have to sort of write this design document to sort of deconstruct games that already existed, which was really interesting for like getting a in-depth knowledge about how games are made and things. And we had a little bit of a play around with different game engines and things like Unity or Unreal. So a lot of your favorite indie games today are probably made in things like that, which I kind of learned how to use at uni, but not enough to build my own game, basically.
So before you did that, I mean, presumably you did a course in gaming because you played video games as a kid. Was it like a thing of I love games? I mean, what was your relationship with games? Going right back, if you like, to the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So I went into it because I always wanted to be a game designer, because like you said, I've always loved games. As far back as I can remember, like my parents had a NES. There's a bunch of NES games up there on the shelf behind me. Can't really see them very well, but
your parents got those NES games?
Yeah, they were my mum and dad's games. Wow. Most of them. So I basically grew up. I grew up playing Mario, Tetris, Mega Man. They already had all that sort of stuff, which was just really cool. My dad before that had a Commodore 64, a Spectrum and stuff like that. But they're not really huge gamers, but I really got into it in a big way. And then the SNES, the N64, all the way through school, I'd be playing the Game Boy in secret in class and everything. I just my whole life sort of revolved around games back then. And I thought that's what I want to do when I grow up, basically.
Yeah. Would you say that gaming was the main hobby when you were growing up as a kid?
Oh
Like,
yeah, not it was pretty much my whole life, not just a hobby.
yeah,
Like even if I was outside, I would have the Game Boy with me, or talking about games, thinking about games, reading gaming magazines as well. That was a big thing. Like probably most of my knowledge about retro gaming comes from reading the magazines back then and seeing, the editors' opinions of them and stuff. I
yeah.
used to love like scanning through hundreds and hundreds of them.
And what you mentioned retro gaming because we're different ages, you and I. Let's just
Mm-mm.
older than you. Um, and I will talk about maybe if you know what year it was. I started to kick in about 2000, maybe a little bit, maybe 98. I think I bought an Atari Lynx. Weirdly, just that was my first random going back. When did you
Mm-hmm.
start going back and looking up the games from the past? So I was very interested about that really with people. Do you remember roughly when that was or why and what happened?
Yeah, it's a weird one because although I like grew up with the NES, the SNES, the N64, back then when I was a kid, I never really thought of them as different console generations or anything. So like even when the N64 was out, I would still buy new NES and SNES games from like boot sales from,
Really? So,
like pre-owned in game shops and stuff. And I just thought of them as games in general, not like retro specifically. And then
yeah,
I kind of figured out what retro was. And obviously there was things like Game Station here in the UK, which was just amazing for buying retro games back then. So properly been buying and collecting retro games and actually understanding that they're retro games probably since about 2002-ish, something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
interesting. Same sort of time as
I've got a good story first. A good reason why I went back to collect a lot of the older games when the GameCube came out. So what was that, like March 2002 here in the UK? Maybe. I sold that was like the first console that I bought with my own money was the GameCube. And to get that, I had to sell my N64 and all of my games. And
okay.
I had so many boxed games. I had like all the Zelda games, like Banjo Kazooie and Tooie. Sold the lot to buy a GameCube, and I really missed them. So a lot of the early collecting for me was actually buying back the N64 games that I used to own. And I think that really got me into the habit of like looking around the shops and learning
Yeah,
how to use eBay as well. It was a big part of it. A kind of dangerous part, but yeah, eBay is a big part of it as well.
it's pretty early then for someone of your age.
Mm.
Kind of,
Yeah, I would have only been, well, I was born in 92, so I would have been about 10
yeah.
when I
Wow.
first realized that I was into collecting retro games. So it has been my whole life,
So
basically.
early, yeah.
Yeah.
You're probably one of the earliest of that kind of age, I think, to get into it. Certainly, I'm trying to think when Retro Gamer Mag came out, probably a little bit after that, possibly, or about.
2005, I
Yeah.
think. I've been a subscriber since day one.
Wow. So,
Yeah, I've got every issue in the garage of Retro Gamer magazine.
so going back to that, because we can come onto YouTube, which I know is one of your massive passions and
Hmm.
part of why we're here. And but I'm really interested on the collecting side because I always think that's the bit that's got you with your channel. I'm guessing, well,
It's
if you,
helped.
I'm sure you could do a retro channel with your Raspberry Pi, but it's a bit more
Mm.
interesting with what you've got behind you and the kind of we'll talk about the stories around the cardboard and the instructions and goodness knows what
Lots
else.
of cardboard. You can't see the rest of my room, but lots of cardboard.
It's amazing. I
Yeah.
love the density of it all. That's something I'm aiming towards once I hook it out the garage once again. But on the collecting side, you mentioned about when you started first collecting, where did you go? And does it exist now? Is that a tip or is that all gone now? The way
Let me think. No, I think most of the places have disappeared these days.
right,
Game Station was obviously a big one. There was a really good Game Station shop in Birmingham. It used to have a basement, and the basement floor was dedicated to retro games.
right,
So every single Christmas, I would get my grandparents, parents, whatever, go over there. I had like 50 quid to spend on retro games, and they were so cheap at the time as well, like 2003, 4.
yeah,
You
yeah,
could
yeah.
you could get like, I don't know, 5 Dreamcast games for a tenner or something.
Wow,
They were basically just giving them away at that point because no one was really interested in collecting. Like I remember when I first started doing pickups videos on YouTube, I would show off like a stack of 20 Mega Drive games, and I'd maybe spent 20 quid on the lot. So it was just insane, and you really can't do that today, which is really sad for people that are trying to get into it. Somewhere else that was really good that's also unfortunately closed now was a place called Game Zone as well. It was another sort of chain of shops. They were kind of more independent. There was a good one in Shrewsbury. So basically, I would go there pretty much every day after college and spend whatever money was supposed to be on lunch or bus money or whatever on games in Game Zone. I made friends with all the owners of all the shops as well, and they would keep interesting things like behind the counter for me and stuff. So got great memories of going to all these shops, and it's really sad they're not around anymore.
That's a really good tip, though, isn't it? Like, if you let people know that you're a collector. Have you ever had any other stories of any, the kind of wider network who's said, "Oh, Nick, a neighbour or a work colleague, where you made yourself be known that you're a collector"? Is that ever...
Yeah, I've got some good stories from work. If you want to skip forward a few years, so in my first office job, so this would be like 2015, 16, something like that. There was like a buying and selling page that they had on Outlook, and you could basically say like, "Hey, I'm looking for whatever," and I just put on there one day like, "Hey, I collect retro games. Has anyone got anything?" Someone said, "Yeah, I'll have a look in my loft. I think I've got a complete in box Commodore 64, a suitcase full of tapes, the tape recorder, a keyboard, like a proper music keyboard for it, loads of other stuff. I'll just give it to you. Don't want any money for it. Maybe a case of beer or something." So I gave him 20 quid and like some Budweiser, and he gave me like a massive box with a pristine condition Commodore 64, loads of stuff to go along with it. And yeah, that was just crazy. I didn't expect that at all. And I've had stuff like just telling people randomly, and they're like, "Oh yeah, do you want like a CRT TV? We're just going to get rid of it, throw it away. Do you want it?" "Yeah, sure." So I got it. I got one back there that I got for free, just off a random person nearby. Yeah.
They almost want to kind of clear the space, don't they, with the bigger stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I used to have a really nice big one, but I don't have room for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've got my brother likes to ridicule me with my TV because it's neither new nor old.
Yeah,
it's not in that middle ground, because my old CRT, I had a Matsui. I mean, not the most high end television, but I love that damn thing. So got it when I was 16, and it lasted about 20 years, and that was my kind of gaming TV. And then I've got a Panasonic Q, which is 36-inch, but almost daren't play it because I don't want it to go.
Yeah, you're scared to use it.
And it weighs about 80 kilos. So to get it down the stairs to be repaired, I probably could get it repaired, one of my sort of arcade friends. So I've literally got a couple of, I think they're like flat screen, or not even, they're just a flatter screen, kind of Sony Triniton. The TV thing is definitely one where I think even now people will just dump a TV on you. So it's good to get those free of charge, isn't it, really?
There's a tip. Don't go and buy a CRT off eBay, because they'll say like for retro gaming, 500 quid. So you don't need to do that. Go on Facebook and ask if anyone's got one they want to get rid of.
Yeah, or just family or friends.
Or just ask family, ask people in the street. Hey, have you got a TV?
Yeah, it's even now. I think you're right. There's been quite a lot of that. I think Digital Foundry did a thing on Twitter about the retro gaming TV sort of debacle. It's just nuts, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Some of the prices they're trying to charge for stuff that would just be thrown away like 10 years ago.
Do you know we're going to go down that dark place now? Because I mentioned to you earlier. Before we get
let's go there if you want.
We go into the light later. What about the perils of retro gaming? Where should we start? Let's start on the collecting side, and we'll come on to YouTube.
Yeah, let's start there.
Kind of, in 2024 or over the last few years, you mentioned all the glory of the beginning, where you could walk in and pick up, 5 Dreamcast games for £1. What about now? What's some of the things that people are up against if you're getting into this hobby, or even if you've been in it for a while? What's some of the bad points about it, really? Do you think?
I think it's just a lot more expensive. People know what things are worth these days, and because the the high street shops have kind of stopped selling stuff, apart from CEX, obviously, and everyone knows CEX's issues, like reprinting covers and charging full price for them, or you can buy a game and don't know whether it comes with a manual or not, so that's something to be wary of. I think they actually changed that recently, though. You can see whether the games have the manuals or not, which is good. But
do you buy from CEX yourself much, or?
Yeah, sometimes, only if there's like something interesting in the window as I'm walking by. Yeah.
And it's not sun bleached.
And well, my CX is inside, so that's fine.
Oh, that's all right.
It's inside the shopping centre, so I don't need to worry about that.
Mine's like closer to the sun than Mars. It's just literally it's everything is sun bleached. It's they have actually clocked it, I think, now, and moved the retro stuff inside. So they have like phones just getting melted. But they
great.
My CX, I've got to know them, and they kind of point out stuff to me, when I come in to chat with them. But I saw recently they had some N64 games. They got Paper Mario in there for $350. Absolutely insane.
I mean, it's a hard to find game, but 350 is mad.
They had is it San Francisco Rush? That was 700 quid.
Yeah, for the N64. Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell?
I don't understand why that's so much. You can get the Dreamcast version for 20 quid still, so get that instead.
But do you think that is it a bit like crypto? There's a top and then it all just falls down because there's a bubble in all this stuff,
Maybe, but people have been saying that for like 10 years now, and the prices haven't really gone back down.
No,
they might level off, but I think the thing is people collect stuff as well as selling it on, so there's just less in circulation over time, isn't there? As well.
I just wonder, is it like comics where I had a Hulk #1. I was looking for a Spider-Man #1. I was looking for Spider-Man #1 probably 12 years ago. The price hasn't moved that much in 10, 12 years because it took, obviously, if you're buying a Spider-Man or a Hulk in the 90s, it wasn't anywhere like. As soon as Disney bought Marvel, it changed the game, etc., etc. But it's not really moved from that very high point. I just wonder, will a copy of Panzer Dragoon? We've got one here.
I wonder why you brought that up.
Is that going to keep? Is Snatcher going to keep moving? Is Radiant Silvergun doesn't keep moving? That was a mover. It kept going and going, and it's sort of plateaued. How does it work? Do you think science behind it all, Nick? Do you know this?
The science behind it. Let's see what I thought about this. I think the pandemic bumped everything up, didn't it, a bit? So I think it was starting to level off like 2019, and then it went 2020, and now it's starting to level off again, maybe. Like, I go to these gaming markets all the time, and you can kind of gauge the prices of some things, and you can see them sort of balancing out. Some of the higher priced ones, anyway.
We do another. Do you want to hold? You show me one of yours, and I'll show you one of mine. Go on.
Okay. I've got some stuff here. Some more rare games. Let's see. Here's an expensive one. Do you know that one? Terranigma.
Get my old man glasses on.
I don't know if you can read it very well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's in very good condition as well, isn't it?
Yeah. This is the Australian one, so this is actually a little bit cheaper than the PAL European version, but very expensive game.
What does that go for?
In the box? Well, this version probably goes for about 300 these days, but the UK one, which is basically the full cover without this like white bit around the top, goes for maybe 500 or 600. Yeah, which is insane. And I'm not going to say the name of the shop, but I know a shop that's got 8 copies of this, and they're refusing to sell any of them because they're waiting for the price to keep rising. So so they're hoping it doesn't level off. But yeah, it's crazy.
That's an interesting take, isn't it?
How do you feel about that? Stores holding on to things like that and refusing to sell them.
I mean,
that's a bit of a dark side of game collecting.
There's 2 ways of looking at it, isn't there? As a commercial sort of way, they're doing it because they're a business.
It makes sense from that point of view.
But then, if it's a hobby, are you just profiteering very fully because you've got 7? I mean, if you had 1 or 2, but there again, anybody can do it. Somebody else could have got those 7. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? Really, because they, you know, haven't killed anybody.
Yeah, I think they just shouldn't have them on the shelf behind them on the counter. That's the only reason I asked them about it.
I mean,
if they
it
had
is.
it in a basement or something, no one would know any different.
I think one would, you know, one would wonder what else are they doing if it's doing that.
Mm.
You know, are they lowballing people when they're buying the collections? Do you want to name your shaman?
It's not local. It's
No.
no, I'm not going to say, just in case.
7 copies is a lot of the something like that though. If they're looking
Yeah.
for it to go down, I'll do something. So this is, do you know this game? This is one of the games on the.
It's in reverse. I can see it's for the Atari Lynx.
Yeah. So
what is it?
This is given to me by this person here. So Ashens gave it to me
Nice.
as a present for me being around 10 years, and I had no idea how rare it was until I looked on eBay. Funnily enough,
Oh dear.
But he had a boxed mint copy and popped it in the post for me, which is very nice. So
what's it called?
It's called Crazy Ace Miniature Golf game on the Atari Lynx.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
But that's sort of random rubbish that he comes up with. But
Yeah.
it's not rubbish. It's just rare, and rubbish games often are rare, as we know.
Yeah, they can be, because people wouldn't have bought them at the time, or they'd be very low print runs too.
Go on then. Got another one.
Let's see. I've got an interesting console I can show you.
Yeah, do that. Do it. Let's freestyle it.
I don't know if it's in the box or not, but it's actually behind me. But here's something interesting.
Is that a Nintendo?
Yeah, the very first Nintendo console.
Okay.
Is
it orange? What colour is that? Is that an orange or? Oh, it's the white.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's the very first revision of it, the cream coloured one.
Nice.
Yeah, they made 6, I think, before the Nintendo Entertainment System. So I want to try and get the full set. Like, they're really interesting, aren't they? Like, no one really knows that Nintendo goes back that far.
If you're talking Game & Watch, has got a little surprise for you as well. I know you like Game & Watches. So I've got those as well.
Oh, nice. The crystal screens. Yeah, the widescreen ones.
So, see, I only got 2 though, because I'm missing one.
What's the bottom one? The top one's Super Mario, right?
Top one is Super Mario. It's in very good condition. It's just got a few little scuffs on the screen, which is unfortunate. The eBay seller lied to me, but I kept it anyway.
They're so thin as well. I've never really seen one in person. That's crazy.
That's in mint though. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I got that from Last Level Games in Canterbury. Nice guy who runs that place.
Nice. So, yeah, I want to visit there at some point.
And he won't mind me saying this, but he inadvertently did me a bundle of games and forgot and didn't find out that this was a rare game. So I chucked this in as a freebie.
Wow.
Can't believe he did it, to be honest. I don't mind.
That's one of the first ones, isn't it?
Yeah. And I basically got about. Can I just sort my screen out behind me?
Yeah, something's going glitchy on there.
He sold me about 6 or 7 handheld games for 90 quid and then threw this in with it, which.
Wow. That was probably worth more than all the rest of them put together.
Well, this is worth now at least 200.
Yeah.
Because it's in mint condition. So this is obviously the American release of Ball.
Yeah.
People say it's Japanese.
Do you want to see the European release of Ball?
Yeah, well, you've got
that. Where did that come from, Chris? Huh?
Well, I sold this to Nick, so this is what happens. Collectors sell things to each other.
This is what I bought off him a few months ago.
Yes.
I have been playing it. I've put it back in there, but the batteries are still in it.
It's very nice.
It is.
I've seen an old.
You've been reunited over the internet.
Yeah, an old flame that you.
There you go. Look at the condition of it. It's so immaculate.
Mm.
Don't worry, it's come to a good home.
It is really good condition, isn't it? When you hold it up to the screen like that,
you're not regretting it, are you? It is perfect. Look, not a scratch on it.
I don't think I could probably get another one like it. But me and Nick had a chat about this. I'd rather it went to him because A, he's a mate, and secondly, he would look after it. And it's a bit like, the first Game & Watch. you can't really beat that, can you? With when
Yeah, no, it's a really cool piece to have. Yeah, 1980 Nintendo. There you go.
Very nice.
I've got to be very careful with that. So yeah, to go along with this, the first Game and Watch, the first, main home console.
Try and get a plastic protector for that. I think give it protection because stuff like this. I'm always buying these things. The protection.
Yeah, I've got all my SNES games. They're in protected boxes. There's another rare one for me to show off.
What's that?
By the same people that made Terranigma. This is the game they made before it. Soul Blazer. This is something I'm going to play on stream soon, actually, because I've had it for ages, but I've never actually tried it. So, looking forward to giving that one a go.
Would you say more of a Nintendo fan than any other?
Yeah, Nintendo is like my bread and butter, but I'm interested in any gaming system or developer, really. But yeah, Nintendo's the collecting side of things, which is probably a bad thing because they're so expensive.
I picked this up recently, a sealed copy of Nier.
Oh, nice.
So that was very cheap, and that's sealed.
Are you going to keep it sealed?
Yes, I am going to keep it sealed. I have a loose copy as well, and I also, off the same person, picked up a sealed copy of this as well.
Oh, nice! Fun game.
Huh? I've got that loose. What do you think about sealed games? What's your view on them? Be brutal. I don't care because I've got two. I've got a few.
What do I think about sealed games? Like it's cool, especially if they're like cardboard ones that are sealed because they're in like immaculate condition. If you've got two, I guess it's good because you can kind of put one on display. I've got a few sealed games. Not that I can see here, but I've got some. But I think games are meant to be played, really. But like you said, you've got copies of them already, so that's just for the collection, isn't it?
I saw them cheap, so I thought I'd just pick them up. And sometimes, do you know what? And he can vouch for this. I gave Darren King Monkey a couple of seal games. Sometimes I give them away, especially they were like a tenner, So it's quite lucky on that Kirby, to be fair.
You'd be paying more for that if it was unsealed.
That was Facebook, actually. And the Nier, it's a good game as well. Again, I see them on eBay. They're 30 quid, so I could sell them tomorrow and make money.
Sometimes Facebook's really good for getting deals if people don't know what they've got.
It is. I think people are also looking to get rid of some of their stuff at the moment. It's probably, like you say, it's plateauing somewhat with with the cost of living thing. I mean, what would you recommend? Say somebody's watching this, because I think on Twitter we've got a few people who are new to collecting. How would you say? What's the strategy? Pacing and buying things. Would you reckon? You've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this, Nick. You're an old man of retro gaming.
Start with what you remember enjoying, I guess, and then start cart only as well. Like, if you just want to enjoy the games and you want to build up a collection, don't worry about the good condition and having the manual and everything, unless you really care about it. But it's going to be like 10 times more expensive than just buying the cartridge. So that's probably a good point. Also, look at Facebook Marketplace. Go to gaming markets, I guess. You can sometimes find good deals there.
Have you ever thought, one day I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to.
Someone in the chat just said charity shop find. Yeah, I think charity shops know what they've got these days. So they just put them straight on eBay. I've seen a few shops get games in and they say they're just going to put them on eBay and let people bid on it so they'll get a lot more money that way, which is a shame because charity shops used to be able to be like, you'd find some decent stuff there.
Would you use eBay? So on the getting rid of thing, I've digressed slightly. Would you use eBay if you say you had to get rid of
getting rid of things? Never.
Would you never get rid of anything?
Well, I would if I had to, I guess.
Is it space?
I think with the amount of stuff that I've got, I'd probably get a table at one of the gaming markets if I needed to get rid of stuff. Because that collectors are there, so they're more likely to buy stuff and you don't need to worry about postage or anything like that. I guess eBay's good for people that have like odd bits and bobs. Or take it to CEX. I mean, they do pay quite well. I mean, they're expensive to buy from, but they pay
Mm.
quite well, especially if you want vouchers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's some good ways of, you know, changing up your collection if you want to. But yeah, I have a bit of a hoarder problem. I've got just boxes of loose games down there as well. I don't know what to do with, and then all that stuff, and the loft's full of games and suitcases. Like, yeah, I probably need to learn how to get rid of stuff, honestly. So if you got any tips, let me know.
Um, I,
Without regretting it, and then buying them back later, which I've done in the
yeah.
past.
I mean, I don't think I've ever regretted selling something. I must admit, because that's why I have to think about. Is that a dog?
Yeah, it's all right. My girlfriend's going to get the door. The doorbell just went.
No worries. I think
Carry on.
doubles are useful for that. That's all I say. You know, because say you are just collecting, you can always get rid of the double.
Yeah, true.
And I weirdly, you're going to probably shudder at this. I've bought people's
Go on.
collections in wallets before. Okay, so I bought a guy's PS2 collection, about
Just the loose disc.
800 games.
Oh my god.
And in about down here, about 8 wallets, about 100 games in each, and it's a really good collection because I mean there's some weird stuff in there and there's some doubles and what have you, but it was cheap. And yes, I didn't have the covers for it, but imagine the space that would have taken up would have been huge in my collection. And it came with a silver PS2 with a screen on it in a carry case, and it was 80 quid.
Wow. And they were all official games as well, not copies or anything.
All official.
That's insane. Wow.
I bought that in 2013, which was at the death knell of the PS2. Nobody wanted a PS2.
Perfect time to buy PS2 stuff.
2013, because it was like 12 years after it come out. PS3, whatever people say, people were buying PS3. Nobody's really playing a PS2. And Xbox 360, I think, would have been out at that point. And I just thought, I don't know what, I was just browsing, and I think I wanted a PS2 with a screen on it, and it just came with all these games. But it wasn't like I got rid of the artwork and stuff. I just happened to get it from his collector, and it's the only disc-based, non-cased collection I've ever bought. But I would possibly do it again if it was cheap. That's going to be the challenge now, because back then it wasn't a thing. So why do you think it is a thing now? Why are these prices? Is it a silver bullet? Is it YouTube, or is it a number of things that have made?
People like to blame YouTube, don't they? I guess that might be part of it. I guess people have just, over time, there's just been more and more content about what is worth money and what isn't. It's not just YouTube, it's Twitter, websites telling people what games are worth money or which ones are worth playing.
I think
it's just time. Go on, what's your take on it?
I work in the industry, as you know.
Yeah.
And I actually think I wouldn't call it a blame. I think it's a good thing that it's been promoted that publishers like
you mean like re-releases of classic titles? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Nintendo have been doing it for years, let's face it. I mean, how many times have you seen a Mario game?
Well, they do it all the time.
Konami, Capcom, Taito, I could go on, have looked at their back catalogue and have re-released versions or remasters of those games. And I think that's the thing that has brought this kind of, I'll go back and replay Metal Gear Solid because there's a new one, or there's a remaster of whatever game it might be, Streets of Rage 4, etc. And I think it's so massive that gamers have actually forgotten that this has had a huge impact on the nostalgia for the old stuff. It's like,
that's a really good point.
It's something I really think about, because obviously I'm dealing with work in merchandise. So I've worked very close with Capcom, Resident Evil, and Silent Hill with Konami, and obviously there's new games coming out for those games which are 20 plus years old. I think it's just locked in our minds, but we've forgotten about it, and that's why I think certain games have become Mario. If you can get a mint copy of Mario 64, you go to heritage auctions probably. You're going to get thousands for it.
So someone in the chat just said, yeah, those articles saying that stuff goes for like 20 grand. I remember when they said that about Mario 64, and it's like, everyone go and look in your loft. You might be sitting on a gold mine.
That's
and then it turns out like, yeah, it's probably only worth like 100 quid, not thousands. But it gets people interested in the idea of collecting old stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not a thing when you first started, let's face it.
There wasn't really any presence of collecting online or even in the news or anything. It wasn't mainstream at all. Which meant everything was a lot cheaper, but it was also harder to find out what was actually worth buying. So it's better in some ways that there's more information out there.
I like the comment here, bogus media. What do you think?
Bogus media.
When the mainstream media gets hold of gaming, is it quite amusing to you?
It is, yeah, they don't have a clue what they're on about half the time, do they?
I think it's different
just
when you get
clickbait articles.
When you get a games writer, obviously like Keith Stewart in The Guardian, Keith's he's a fan, he's an enthusiast, he's grown up with games. They've got their own games sort of division, if you like.
Yeah, that's different. I know things like The Mirror have one as well, don't they, and stuff. So it is good when they actually hire someone who knows what they're talking about. But if they just want to excite people about what they potentially have, then it's just always really misleading.
Well, funnily enough, it's often in the financial section because of the extreme hype for pricing that these things are for, and it's not always the heritage auction story. It's a bit like toys have the same thing, don't they? They suddenly find out that a toy got auctioned.
Toys, trading cards, that's big as well now.
Trading cards is massive. You think it could go that big? Retro games like the trading card world.
Maybe, but maybe not, because obviously cards are a lot easier to collect because they're a lot smaller. Like, you don't need a whole room dedicated to a trading card collection. So I think that limits it slightly in terms of the retro gaming, because if people are just interested in playing the games, they'll just emulate them or download the ROMs or play it on Switch Online or the collections that you can get these days. So I think it's a little bit different.
Do you talk about this? Let's go into the YouTube now. Is this a discussion point on your channel ever? Do you talk about the collecting side?
I probably should do more. I haven't really touched on collecting in a while now, but I think it'd be something people are interested in. I do my pickups videos and stuff, but that's not really talking about the state of the hobby in general. I don't know if that's something that people would be interested in. I could see if I can work it into the channel.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you'd like to hear something like that.
I'd like to hear about Nick's journey of collecting. Talking about journeys, segue into the next piece of this. YouTube, which is really grown for you, Nick, over the years. You're at how many subscribers now?
38,000, something like that, which is just insane. I never thought I would have got that far.
So tell me about the beginnings before we kind of come on to what you're doing now, really. How did it all start?
From searching YouTube back in the day to find videos about games that I wanted to buy, basically, and then sort of really enjoying that and then trying to emulate that myself. And well, actually, no, before that, it was the Angry Video Game Nerd. So I'm sure a lot of people know about the AVGN back then.
James Rolfe.
James Rolfe. I loved his videos so much. Like, when I found out about them, I was like 14, 15 years old, so perfect age for his sort of humor and stuff. And my first few videos on my channel, me trying to be like the Angry Video Game Nerd, and it just did not work at all. Yeah. I can't pretend to be angry, it just doesn't work. But that was sort of the start of me wanting to make videos, and then finding out about other channels like Happy Console Gamer was a great one back then. Metal Jesus Rocks, obviously, everyone loves his videos. Just loads of really early channels.
The American, you looked at, was it
mostly American? Yeah. I don't know why.
Maybe
because they talked about Nintendo more than the UK channels.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because the UK ones, especially back then, were more focused around microcomputers, and I didn't really know much about that. Yeah. Because I'd sort of grown up in the generation slightly after that, when it was all just Windows 95 was the computer, and there wasn't really any alternatives. And there was PlayStation and Sega and Nintendo, I guess. So it was kind of a blank spot for a while, but I've dabbled in Spectrum and Commodore and stuff now, so I enjoy watching YouTubers from anywhere these days. But it is interesting to see that there was such a big difference between console and computer depending on the region.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear to see, and
even today, it's still kind of the same.
The console piece was huge in the US. I think computers. I mean, I'm 50, and the computer scene was huge when I was at junior school and kind of senior, where the only thing that penetrated, but quite small, was the Master System. Everybody had an Amiga, ST in the mid 80s, you know, quite soon out. As soon as that came, everybody jumped onto those machines like it was a new console. And obviously we had the Spectrum Commodore 64 playground fights as well. Amstrad had a bit of a look in, but it was huge, Spectrum. But
yeah, I'm kind of sad I missed out on all of that.
It was exciting. It was an exciting time. But the games were nowhere near in terms of the, I suppose, speed and the colorways of the NES.
Yeah, it is really hard to go back that far, I found, because I really wanted to get into the Commodore and the Spectrum, but even just loading a tape up, it's like a different world for me.
They are very cool games, though. You've got games like Jetpack.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I love Jetpack. I've played them these days, and they are fun once you can play them.
But it's a different thing. And as you
I've
say,
got my Spectrum there, actually.
You're into Nintendo, so...
There it is.
That's not your childhood one, obviously, because you're too young for that.
Yeah, it's not mine. So this was another thing that someone at work gave me.
Nice.
But I haven't hooked it up yet. But I love the design of it. It's so like timeless design, isn't it? It's really nice.
So when you started your YouTube, then was it just YouTube, or did you do other social channels at the time?
Just YouTube, I think. Yeah, that's pretty much been my focus since day one. I didn't really take it seriously for a long time. It was just uploading just stacks of Mega Drive games that I bought at Game Station, basically, and just showing people what I'd bought. But over time, I sort of came up with a bit more of a plan and a structure for how I wanted to move it forward and grow it. So
what's
it's been a journey.
I've noticed really in the last couple of years, Nick, your channels. I mean, I think I knew you when you were. I don't have many subscribers, so I must do more YouTube. Funny, we're on it now, and I don't. I'm more of an X guy, or Twitter as I call it. But I really sort of saw you turn a corner. What was the thinking behind all that?
A lot of planning. Yeah. So I basically took it seriously in 2018 when I rebranded to Retrobreak. So that was sort of the start of me actually taking it seriously. So I've been doing YouTube since 2007. So I was born in 92. So that makes me 15 when I started doing YouTube. And then in 2018, that's when I decided, like, I really enjoy making videos, but no one's watching.
Right, yeah.
What can I do to get people interested in the content that I want to talk about? So like you were saying before we went live, you went on that course to learn about presenting and stuff. I did whole load of research.
You're giving it away now, all the pro tools that I was using.
All these pro tips. You're doing very well, by the way.
Good.
You can tell them in your next session. So yeah, I was doing a whole load of research about how to present in front of camera, how to write scripts. Basically, before 2018, as far as the planning went on my channel was just the title of the video. Or what do I want to show in this video? No editing thought went behind it, no sort of story or anything. But since then, I read a whole load of books and stuff, and it's like the 3-act structure, like how do you structure a video to keep people engaged? Properly looking at the analytics as well, which is a big part of YouTube for me, and it's something I really enjoy as well. But what's it called? Average view duration and things like that. So you can see when people dipped during a video or when they were more interested. And sort of every video after that, I would look at the stats a week later and sort of think, like, why did people lose interest here? Or why did less people watch this one in the first 24 hours compared to this one? Was it the topic? Was it the way I presented it? Was the intro too long? There's just so many little bits and pieces that over those like 5 years or so, I've narrowed down and tried to fix. Basically, it's been a difficult process to figure everything out, but I think I'm on the right track now. So there's still a long way to go, but I'm taking it seriously.
I can tell.
Which I didn't used to.
Yeah. I mean, it's much more of a show, isn't it? I think that's what it is, really. Where
I think, honestly, I think that making videos has become more of a hobby than buying and playing games at this point.
Really?
But yeah, I probably put more mental energy into video production these days, which is kind of weird. But
that's a tough thing, isn't it? Because I mean, I can't get away from Twitter. I'm slightly addicted to it.
I know, even after the X rebrand.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't make much difference.
I dabble elsewhere. I think you have a favourite channel, but
I love Twitter as well. I still love it.
It's
my favourite website
to do all this stuff. I mean, it's you know, just YouTube. Let's talk about and play the games. How do you balance the two things? You know, is it possible even?
A lot of planning.
Yeah.
Beforehand, and yeah, it's a lot of figuring out how long things take and then trying to simplify the processes for everything. Like I've got loads of templates in my editing software, so I can just drag clips in and all the titles are already there and stuff, and the intro's already set out, and I've got like timestamps for when I should show things that really speed up that. Everything's already plugged in and ready to record, like the lights are all set up, the camera's always in the same place. So it's just like that, like how can you save time and make things more streamlined? I've put a lot of thought into that as well. I would not be able to do a video a week at the rate that I'm doing now if I didn't have all this planned out.
What about what's one of a few even videos you're most proud of from your repertoire?
It's kind of sad because the ones I'm most proud of are the ones with the least views. I guess the reason for that is because they're more personal videos rather than broad appeal ones, but I really like the history videos that I make, so like the documentary style ones. I did one about the development of the Game Boy Advance, which was really interesting to research for, like seeing all the prototype versions of the systems and how they came up with the designs, and I'd found like interviews with developers and stuff. So I really love that sort of in-depth research, but it's hard to grow a channel around that because it's so like narrow focus that a lot of people probably wouldn't be interested.
Is it hard to? I mean, I tried this on TikTok earlier. Is it hard, but you feel like you might be chasing the algorithm? Say like top 10s, or most popular, or because you know I just stuck a video up earlier and put this music. Always seems to appear with like people are breakdancing. I mean, you know that track, and I put it up and I thought I bet it won't work. And I looked. And in 12 hours, I've had 60,000 views on the video.
That's insane. TikTok's just a crazy world that I have no idea how it works.
You know? And it's just like, but it's playing Astro Wars, and people complaining, going, I want to hear it, you know. But
well, they want to hear the game or the song?
I want to hear the game, but I had.
But if you didn't put that song on it, then it wouldn't have been seen in the first place.
What was weird, I fancied doing a little test because I actually did a one without the song, and it got 250,000 views.
Yeah.
But I think if you try and do it again, it won't work. And this is where trending music works. What about the YouTube algorithm? You know, what's that sniffing around for, do you think, these days? Are you going to give
any top games list?
Is
anything top 15, top 10, whatever? They always do really well.
Do they?
But that's the thing, you have to balance it because they do well, but they're also not very interesting to make.
Right.
So how do I make that interesting for me so that I don't end up burning out and quitting like a lot of YouTubers have done because they're too busy chasing the algorithm? So it is a really difficult balancing act.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at the chat. I'm listening. I'm doing that thing. and it's a point that's come up. Games made of cardboard. Do you think that gaming has been exhausted? I think AVGN has been going on longer than my entire life in gaming, from Spectrum to PS2. You know, is it burnt out? Do you think somewhat? People looking for something new, Nick, that you could bring them, perhaps.
What do you want to see? What's unique and original? That's the thing. If you try and make something that is original, no one finds it.
Right.
So unless you just keep pumping it out, and eventually it will take off. But yeah, like there's some channels that have been doing the same thing since the beginning. Like as much as I love Happy Console Gamer, his videos are basically the same as they were 15 years ago.
Right.
And I don't know. Some people just enjoy
Cups
talking
and
about
top pens and that kind
yeah,
of hidden gems.
hidden gems.
Yeah,
They do really well, but the
yeah,
other problem with that as well, once you've already made a top 10, once you've already talked about the hidden gems, then what do? Your channel's dead. You can't make any more videos. You have to have something else that's also popular.
yeah,
That's what I was trying to do with the history videos, but
yeah.
they just don't have the same traction. Homebrew has been doing really well, and there's always new homebrew stuff coming out, so that's sort of a continual series that I can keep going with. Um, if you want a bit of a behind the scenes, actually, I have a list of. This will be helpful to anyone who's thinking about YouTube as well. I've been looking at my stats over like the past 5 years as well, and I've wrote down the types of videos that still bring in views.
Okay.
So everyone, pay attention. Top games and hidden gems, obviously, they're the top two. That makes sense.
Really? Yeah.
This one's quite interesting. This is a series of videos that I've called My Journey. So it's basically like me talking about my journey through Nintendo handhelds, like, and just talking about my experience with a range of things. They always do really well, which is really interesting. So, like, if you're interested in a certain game series, you could do a video like my journey through the Zelda series or something.
Yeah. Okay.
That would do well.
Journey. Yeah.
Mm.
Nice.
Something else. I've got an example for this one. This is something that a company sent me over recently. These retro handhelds, these are really popular on YouTube.
They are everywhere.
They are everywhere. Like
ridiculous.
Retro Dodo has built their entire business around them, among other things. But yeah, they're always coming out. I've got that one too. This is the same as that. This is the horizontal version of that vertical one.
It's a publisher's nightmare, mate. To be honest.
Yeah.
There's so much illegal wrongdoing, should we say, with those.
It's interesting. This one came pre-installed with 2 micro SD cards that have like every ROM for every system up to PS1 on them. And there's nothing the publishers can do because they come from a specific place in China where it's not illegal. So they just keep pumping them out.
Mm.
But from a YouTuber's point of view, reviewing something like this, you're guaranteed to get views from people looking at retro handhelds and things.
I mean, the way
dubious legalities, but it works. It's interesting.
I mean, it's a way that a lot of people are entering the retro gaming space at the moment. Yeah. It's all there. Those things are all over TikTok. I think if you look up retro gaming, you don't see so many people like us collecting.
Yeah.
It's mainly these.
You see emulator handhelds. Yeah. And I've got a whole stack of them over there because companies keep sending them to me.
Like, I mean, it's certainly been a journey the last 20 years, isn't it? The retro gaming, would it make a great documentary in some ways, seeing how it's changed over the years, perhaps?
Yeah, and also, how do people feel about ROMs versus physical games as well? Because it's always been accessible. Like, even back in school and college, I was downloading emulators and finding out about games that way. So it's not really a new thing. Like, even like the PSP, you could play games on it, but there's still a market for people who want to buy things physically as well.
I like the discussion, why has it always got to be versus, digital, physical?
They can coexist.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like Switch, I have physical games.
Yeah.
I work for Numskull, we publish games physically and digitally, but I prefer the physical owning of something, I don't know why.
I think the different discussion in the retro gaming scene is the publishers don't get any money if someone downloads a ROM. So if you're doing these re-releases and people are downloading the same game and putting them on here, then that's bad for business, isn't it? But I don't know what you can do about that because it's always been around and they will always coexist.
I think
you just have to live with it.
I've got friends, I've got family in the movie and the games industry, so I'm pretty protective about it.
I'm sure piracy is the same in the movie industry as well.
The trouble is everybody does it and you've got no industry. This is the issue. So it's like the whole thing of people complaining. I'm getting on my high horse now, Nick, I'm afraid.
That's all right.
Complaining about game shop shutting or arcade. What the classic was, the arcade shut, as if it's somebody's fault. But it's our fault, actually.
For not supporting them.
Not supporting them and playing on the PlayStation 1. Because I used to go to the Trocadero and it was empty.
Yeah, I miss the Trocadero. I went to that a few times.
Afterwards, this is the thing, and I understand people's dollar or pound's got to go elsewhere. But that's the reason why, we've had a resurgence of the arcade, luckily, but it was flatlining for years. In certain countries, should we say, in the UK, it really took a sort of thorough beating on the game side. Now, if you go to an arcade now, it's very much, we'll come on to arcade club and places like that, but it's ticket redemption and coin pushers, that sort of thing mainly.
Yeah.
But luckily, places like Arcade Club and some of the retro arcades have brought this back. What do you feel about that scene? Are you pleased that it's made a journey back over the last 10 years?
Arcades are in a really good place at the minute. I was at Hollywood Bowl, like one of the modern arcades the other day, and they've even got really cool games in there. They've got like big Need for Speed, like 5-screen racing games and VR games and stuff. Like, you wouldn't expect that arcade would still be going as strong as it is, but it is doing really well. And Arcade Club's amazing though, but that's a little bit different. But it's great that the two exist, and you can tell that there's passion about the retro cabinets and things still to this day, and it's great that people have been able to build places like Arcade Club.
What about travel? Because I know you went to Japan, didn't you?
Yeah.
Is that another trip you're going to plan in, do you think?
Yes, hopefully at the end of this year. I'm going to go back again. Spend too much money on retro games while I'm there.
Do you think we might see some of that on your channel? Because that would be nice to see some of your visits and collecting and so forth.
Yeah, it should do. Apparently, it's a little difficult to film inside in Japan these days because they've had some trouble with YouTubers and streamers. So I might have to do it a little bit discreetly. But hopefully there'll be something to show you because there's a load of cool shops out there. Nice. I think you've seen my Akihabara tour videos, haven't you, where I showed off all the game shops? So hopefully I'll be able to do an updated one of them with a nice this new camera that I've got and new lens and stuff. So fingers crossed. By the end of this year, we might have some more Japan videos from me.
Well, what about other things in your channel? Got anything planned coming through in the next sort of few months this year? What's your plans for 2024, Nick?
Let's see. What can I share?
You're all organised.
I am very organised. I have I basically have the whole year planned out at this point. I've got a big Excel file here. It does change. So I'm going to do more ROM hack videos because I did a video about ROM hacks last week and that's done really well. So a Pokemon version of that will do very well, I'm sure. Game Boy Homebrew competition. I was a judge for that recently, so the results are going to come out soon so I can talk about the best games from the competition. But something more interesting for your audience, I guess. I do actually have... This is a big, long-term plan, like several years long. I have a list of consoles, and then I have a list of certain videos that I want to do for every console. So I want to do a top games video, hidden gems. I want to do a history video for each console. So taking a look into the development of it. Like I was saying earlier, the journey videos do really well. So like sharing my memories about a specific console or handheld. And then at the end of that, when I've done all these videos, I'm going to put them all together into one big video as well and see how that does. Because I've seen some YouTubers now putting out videos that are like compilations with bits in between that are like 2 hours long and people can just listen to in the background and stuff. So that might be something that I experiment with once I've built my catalog up a bit more. So we'll see whether that helps the channel or not, but it'll be something interesting to try and do.
Any collaborations maybe?
I'd like to.
AVGN and Nick maybe in the future.
Yeah.
What about it?
I haven't really thought about it.
That could be interesting. I'm going to the US, fingers crossed, a couple of times this year. Are you planning to meet Metal Jesus and maybe the crew? And...
I would love to. I would love to go to one of the expos in America, like Portland Retro Gaming Expo is always a really big one. MagFest. So I would love to try and go out there and meet some of the American YouTubers that I've watched, like since I was interested in YouTube, basically. I was fortunate enough to meet John Riggs, so one of the Metal Jesus crew in Norwich, OLL last year. Yeah, that was really cool. I got some of his... There's one of them. I bought this off him while I was there. One of his NES homebrew games, Cereal Cafe.
Yeah, he's big into cereal, John, isn't
he? He is. He was actually asking me whether I could get a specific version of Cheerios that only got a release in the UK or something,
Yeah,
and
that's
send them to him in the post. Like,
excellent.
he's very serious about his cereal and collecting,
Yeah,
which is pretty funny. But yeah, I
superb.
would love to meet more American YouTubers and do something on that side of the pond.
Well, Nick, it's been quite a pleasure indeed, because I know we've chatted informally. This is an informal chat, but I've never really got to know you, and you know, it's been really good to get your journey. Thanks for sharing your journey from the early days. You can go back and see Nick's very early videos if you
Don't do it. Don't go back that far. It's awful. I keep them there just because it's interesting to see the progression. But yeah,
but it's been an absolute pleasure. Funnily enough, we're just hitting an hour, so I was good to my word to say
it's
it was
flown by.
an hour piece, and yeah, it's been fascinating covering so many different interesting subjects. And obviously this is live, but put in the comments any questions that you've got for Nick, because he's an active person on YouTube. I'm sure he will come in, and of course we'll be putting the links to all Nick's channels. It's not just YouTube, you're on kind of everywhere as well, everywhere else.
I've started doing Twitch as well in the past year or so, and that's quite fun.
So follow Nick on YouTube and on all his socials, because he's got some really interesting, fascinating subjects coming up. He's going to be kind of journeying his channel even more. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you do, and even at events. I might even see you at a US event. That'd be really exciting to do that. I'm sure I'm going to see you.
We should plan it for next year.
Yeah, exactly. Japan as well. I'll be seeing it at your London Gaming Market, because that's coming up in March.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure to talk today, and I will be doing it again soon at some other point. So I'll be regrouping with Nick to make sure that he promises and delivers on all these videos that he's telling me about. But in all seriousness, it's been a great hour, and to find out a lot more about your experiences and your kind of growth of your channel, and also your collecting good habits over the years, and we see
good
that
and bad.
So thanks to everybody who's watching live, thanks to everybody who's watching afterwards, and obviously thank you to Nick Westwood from Retrobreak, and I will see you guys, and I'll say goodbye, Nick can say goodbye on the next video. See you soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks everyone. Thanks.